all things work together for good for those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So wherever you're engaging this morning, just ask that you would surrender yourself to his will and to his way, to his love for you, wherever he leads you and whatever it costs you, that you surrender yourself to his good and pleasing will. Let's sing this together. Wherever you lead. Wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, Lord, all I want is you. All I want is you. Sing that with your whole heart. Wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, Lord, all I want is you. Jesus, all I want is you. Come on, sir. Wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, Lord, all I want is you. Jesus, all I want is you. Oh, and you are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. Oh, there's a million reasons to trust you. Nothing to fear, for you are by my side. I'll follow you anywhere. I'll follow you anywhere. Oh, I'll follow you anywhere. Oh, I'll follow you anywhere. Yes, follow you, Jesus. I count on one thing. The same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh, yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh, yes, I will. I count on one thing. The same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh, yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh, yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh, yes, I will for all my days. Oh, yes, I will. And I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names, that nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names, that nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names, that nothing can stand against. to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of our names, that nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will.
Hands that created the heavens, find me now. Grace runs as deep as your scars. You pulled me from the clay, set me on a rock, called me by your name, made my heart whole again.
Lifted up, and my knees know it's all for your glory. I might stand with more reasons to sing than to fear. You pulled me from the clay, you set me on a rock, you called me by your name, made my heart whole again. Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, you loved my whole heart through. Sin has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds me now. And that grace owns the ground where the grave did. All my shame remains left for dead in your wake. You crashed those age-old gates. You left no stone unturned. You stepped out of that grave, shouldered me all the way. Here I stand, high in surrender. I need you now. I stand high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Oh, here I stand high in surrender. I need you now. Hold my heart now and forever. My soul cries out. Once I was broken, you loved my whole heart through. Sin has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds me now. Cleansed and forgiven. Look where my chains are now. Death has no hold on me, 'cause your grace holds that ground. Your grace holds me now. Your grace holds me now. Your grace holds me now. Your grace holds me now.
We share things every day, things that are meaningful to us, that entertain, inspire, or challenge us. We share moments, good or bad, big or small, because what we share matters. We have the chance to share something incredible, the hope that has transformed our lives. And today, more than ever, people are searching for hope, for connection, for meaning. The life we've experienced in Jesus is available to our friends and neighbors, and it's easier to share than we might think. Over the next few weeks, we are running Alpha, an opportunity to share Jesus with friends, family, and colleagues in person or online. Each week, we'll connect with each other, watch a short video, and have time to discuss our thoughts and questions without needing to have all the answers. All it takes is a simple invitation. Share life, faith, hope, Jesus. Who will you invite?
Well, good morning, Journey. I'm so glad to be with you today. And of course, it wouldn't be a Sunday without a few technical difficulties, but we thank you for sticking with us. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the video that you just watched. Alpha is actually starting tonight at 6 p.m. And we have a good group that have registered. And I'm going to be hosting it, and I just want you to know that this is a chance for you right now to go onto your phone and go to tryalpha.ca and scroll down to the bottom and find us, find Journey Church, and you can register. You're not too late. We would love to have you, and I'm just so excited about this because Alpha is, for me, is that bedrock foundation that I think everybody has to learn. It's the basics of Christianity. And Alpha is a non-threatening place to be able to ask questions of life, no matter what background you are, no matter what faith you are. Alpha is basically a presentation of the Christian faith. And we can come together and we can ask all the questions that you want. We can discuss together. It's a wonderful time. So if you could maybe shout it out to a friend, bring a friend, invite a friend. We're meeting tonight at 6 p.m. And if you register, we'll include you between now and then. And also, if you can't make it tonight, it's okay to make it next week. It runs for 6 weeks, and we're doing 6 videos and discussions. So we would love for you to join us. I would also love to just announce today that our fasting time ends today. We've been doing 21 days of fasting. And I know personally I would love if some of you would just share with us your experience of that. I know there's been quite a few people taking part. The Bible says that some things only happen through fasting and prayer. And so I would love to hear your experience. Maybe you can just private message us on Facebook or send us an email. That would be wonderful. Also, I want to let you know that we have a new way of connecting with us. We are now in the Bible app. It's called the Bible app. Anywhere you get your apps, download your apps, YouVersion Bible app. And all you need to do is when you download that, you go into More, the menu More, and then you hit Events, and you'll find us. And you can follow along the sermon. All the links from the songs are on there. There's a video I'm showing later where we would love for you to just click on that and watch that video at a later time. You can save those notes. You can also save them on your phone so you can look back at it at a later date. Today, I want to just maybe come into your living room, if you allow me to. And I want to bring this series to a close. We've been doing the Great Reset. And we've been learning a lot from the pastors that have been speaking. And today, I think that this is more of a celebration of our fasting and prayer as we come to a close in this Great Reset. We've learned a lot about how to set ourselves up and position ourselves for renewal. And today I've got the benefit or the privilege of coming to you today and talking to you about a subject that has been dear to my heart, especially lately. And that is how renewal is closely connected to surrender. I've been watching CNN, and well, I try not to watch CNN, but I've been watching news channels and Facebook feeds and all that, and I've come to a conclusion that our world is in an absolute chaotic mess. I can't remember of my 41 years of living, yes, I'm 41, I don't look it and I don't act it, but I can't remember a time in my lifetime where this world has been more chaotic. And to put it quite frankly, just out of our minds. Stupid is everywhere. And I just can't understand how we got here. And I do believe that people are looking for answers. I believe that people are looking for answers for the anger that they have, the division that they see. I mean, over the past few months, we have seen more anger and violence and disputes and division, not just in the world, but in the Christian faith. People disagreeing at every corner. And it hurts my heart because I don't think it has to be that way. If there was ever a time for the church to be in a place and in a position to be the answer for what the world is looking for, it's now. And so we have to ask ourselves a question. Have we fully surrendered to Jesus? Or have we given in to the temptation to be divided and to be angry and to be in full disagreement at every turn? I believe that Jesus, when he was here on earth, lived a life of full surrender, and he is calling us during this specific time for the church to unite together and to surrender to him in unity. I think that we've been fighting the wrong battle. I think it's so easy for me and for anybody else to take a look at all of the disputes out there. I mean, the stupid things that we think about and talk about and we disagree on. Are face masks valuable? Do they work? Is this a conspiracy theory? Like, it's unbelievable. The things that we actually spend our time thinking about. And us as Christians, we have come to the place where we actually are involved in the absolute wrong battle. The battle that we should be involved in is directing people towards Jesus Christ. And if our actions and our thoughts and our words are not conducive to the mission of Jesus Christ, then we have no business having a Facebook account or an Instagram account. I think that Christianity needs to be predominantly positive, showing us that, you know what, even though this does suck, we actually have a hope. And in order to get there in my life, I've had to surrender my political views. I've had to surrender my life. And today, that's what I want to talk to you about. Oswald Chambers, if you've never heard of Oswald Chambers, he's a guy that wrote this devotional book, and he's quite a well-known author. He wrote this devotional book called My Utmost for His Highest. If you haven't ever read that, you need to get it. It's a 365-day devotional. It's short devotionals, but he tells it like it is. He doesn't hold anything back. He just tells it like it is. I'm going to give you a quote to start this message off today by Oswald Chambers. It says this: "The reason some of us are such poor specimens of Christianity." He starts it off really, really softly. He just wants to work his way into this. He's very political, if you'll notice. "The reason some of us are such poor specimens of Christianity is because we have no almighty Christ. We have Christian attributes, we have Christian experiences, but there is no abandonment to Jesus Christ." In other words, the way that I would put that is, in today's sermon, is we have no surrender. We have lost this idea of surrendering to the almighty Christ. I call it full surrender because some of us like to give partial surrender. We surrender the things in life that we are okay with, but as soon as we come across something that maybe we should surrender, that we aren't comfortable surrendering, we justify it. And we say, well, does the Bible really say that? Or is God really asking me that? Well, it's just okay, that's just my opinion. Well, guess what? I'm not sure God cares much about our opinion politically. He cares about the condition of our heart. And so the question today is, have you fully surrendered to Christ? We're going to talk about that over the next few minutes. Our key concept today is that God is calling us to fully surrender our hearts to His. God is pursuing His church to fully surrender in order to be fully free. And there is no surrender. This is what I would say. There is no surrender without full surrender. So we're going to talk about the what, the who, the when, the why, the how of surrender today. And the first thing I want to talk about is the what. What is full surrender? Full surrender is surrendering all that we know of ourselves to all that we know of God. We cannot surrender the things that we don't know about. And so we have this idea, well, how do I surrender everything? Well, you only surrender the things that God brings to your attention through His Word, through the preaching of His Word, through the Spirit living in you and convicting you. And He is the one that brings stuff to your attention. I've lived a Christian life for quite a while. And some of you have lived your Christian lives a lot longer than I have. And I'm sure that you are willing to agree with me this morning that He has revealed things to you that you need to surrender from the very first day until now. God is able to peel back the layers, and with each layer, there is something to surrender. It's a journey, it's a process. I would encourage you to someday, or even now, just in your minds, think of a list of 2 or 3 things that you struggle with right now. Can we go there in our minds right now? What is it that you struggle with right now? What things? List them privately, just in your own mind and your own heart. I can remember a time in my life when there was something that I completely was overwhelmed by. I was overwhelmed with fear in my life. It was the type of fear that I thought that the things that were the closest to me, or those that were closest to me, I was going to lose someday. And so I actually developed this, I don't know if you call it a condition or just a response of survival almost, where I just decided in my own heart it's best to close myself off once I get too close, because of fear of losing those things that meant the most to me. And so until there was a time when I hit rock bottom and God met me in my most desperate times. And may I just kind of interject here in my own sermon and tell you that desperation paves the road to surrender. Because when there is no other option, we have no other choice but to throw our hands up and wave the white flag and say, I surrender. And so I was at that moment in my life where I had no choice. The relationships that I had were on the fence. My education was in the air. All because I was afraid to lose those things. It overwhelmed me. It created anxiety and depression in me. And so God showed me that I was going to be on this long journey of surrendering this over to Him. And for days and weeks and months and even years, I had to come up with this pattern of surrender in my life. And until the pattern of fear became a pattern of trust, I wasn't able to release it. Sometimes it's not as easy as just coming down to the altar of a church and saying, I surrender all. Sometimes it's actually a long journey of surrender. And so today I need to encourage you that it is not easy, but it is easier when we take one step towards Him. And I'm going to get to that later. And so it's not just about what we surrender, because if we surrender all of the stuff, but we're serving the wrong God, it doesn't matter, because it's the who of surrender that matters more than the what of surrender. And so it's the who that gives power to the what. If you remember Joshua, he was well known. He was the guy that led the Israelites around Jericho 7 times for 7 days. And the walls came tumbling down. They overtook Jericho, and he was very famous in his day, very famous leader. And Joshua, near the end of his ministry, near the end of his time as leader of the Israelites, he gave this huge speech. And I'm not going to read that today, but near the end of Joshua, he gives this huge speech to the Israelites. It's almost like his manifesto that he wanted the Israelites to remember him by. And what he focused on wasn't the what. He didn't go back and talk about Jericho. He didn't go back and talk about the past and all the things that they had accomplished. He focused on the who. And this is what he says. He said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. He says, who are you going to serve? Who are you going to serve? It was his last speech, and he asked that question. Who? I think in our society today, and really it's almost like a global society, because we're all watching the same things. We're all doing and feeling the same things. And we're kind of wavering between two opinions, and I'm talking specifically right now to the church family, the family of God, the big C church, the global church. And I think that we're in danger of wavering between two opinions. Who am I going to serve? Am I going to serve Jesus, or am I going to serve myself? And in 1 Kings, if you'll turn there with me and you'll see it on the screen, 1 Kings 18, 20 to 21. And this is the story of Elijah, and Elijah was also a famous prophet in his day, and he found himself in the middle of a war in between these people. He was the only prophet left willing to stand up for the Lord. And so he met with these kings and these prophets of Baal. And these people were torn between serving Baal or serving the God of Israel. And this is the two verses that I'm going to direct your attention to. Verses 20 and 21 in chapter 18 says, so Ahab sent to all the people of Israel and gathered the prophets together at Mount Carmel. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, how long will you go limping between two different opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him. In other words, get off the fence. It's time to make a decision. And it says here, I find this very interesting. It says, and the people did not answer him a word. There was close to 900 people in that meeting that day in Elijah. And not one of them opened their mouths when he said, how long will you go limping between two different opinions? I love that word limping in that sentence because that's what it is. As long as you're trying to serve yourself or serve the world and also trying to serve God and the church, you're going to be limping. You're not going to be at full strength. You're going to be limping. You're going to be sore. You're not going to be as impactful. You're going to be between this and that, and things are going to be chaotic. You're going to be angry at this one day and peaceful about this the next day, and you're going to be like a house divided against itself. The Bible says that a house divided against itself will fall. I think that what we need today is full surrender in order for our house to be stable. And so if that's you today, if you've been unstable in your faith, today God is saying to you, how long? How long will you go limping between two different opinions? What are we surrendering to? The Baal of this world, I think, is the God of self. It's me. I get to say what's truth. You get to say what's truth. And then we get mad at each other. And then we say stuff that we regret later. We try to erase comments of people that don't agree with us on our news feed. And that's what we do. That's what life has become. And quite frankly, I'm kind of sick of it. I'm kind of sick of it because it hurts me, because I believe that this is one of the opportunities that God has given us to be the best that we possibly can be, and we can't do that unless we fully surrender to Him. Can I hear an amen? Just say, I don't know, a thumbs up or a heart if you agree with me this morning. Have you fully surrendered to Christ? It's not just the what and the who, but where do we surrender? Surrender is not your point of destination. Surrender is your point of origin. You don't strive to get to a place of surrender. That's where you start. This is not something to strive for. It's something to be. And so we can't say, oh, somewhere long in the distance, when I get to be 80, like Brother Betts, or whatever, fill in the blank of some old saint that you cherish and you know has come to this place of almost next to Jesus, and you say, someday I'll be like that. That is not the truth. You won't be like that unless you surrender now. You don't all of a sudden appear holy. You don't all of a sudden appear in a state of full surrender. You have to choose one step at a time, and that is right now. It is your point of origin. And for so many people, it's often the thought of starting that stops them, the fear of starting something. Have you ever tried to climb a mountain? Now, I've never done that because I am extremely fearful of heights. I hate them. Every now and then we have to get up on this boom, this genie thing, this lift that lifts us up to the lights, and we have to change the lights. That is never my job. I call Matthew Maxwell, our lead pastor, and I ask him to do it because he's like the opposite end. He actually gets a thrill out of going, I'll never understand it. But when I look at a mountain, I've stood at the bottom of Mount Washington, and I've looked at the top, and we've driven up to the top. And I have actually stood there and thought, this is overwhelming. How in the world can anybody climb a mountain? And just the thought of starting something like that is overwhelming. If you haven't watched this documentary, National Geographic did a free solo. It's about this guy that conquers this humongous flat surface wall, and he climbs it without cables eventually. And it's insane. The guy is absolutely nuts. He is a special breed for sure. But it was overwhelming to him to look at the top without going through a process of training and taking one step at a time. And if you're at the bottom of a mountain of surrender, and you're looking at that mountain, you're saying it's way too overwhelming. Have you ever been in your Christian life and say, I just can't do this? All God wants is for us to take one little step in the right direction. He wants us to take an inch, and He'll take the mile. But all He needs is a little tiny seed of faith. And He can grow that seed. It is not about how much we can do. It's about who we surrender to. When do we surrender? Every waking moment. The Bible talks about daily giving our hearts over to Him, our surrender over to Him. In Luke 9:23, it says this. He said to all, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Daily. He talks about denying and dying. It's deny and die. And it seems so opposite in this world of success where we need to thrive and we need to live. It just seems surrender is a concept that people don't understand, because usually with surrender, it means defeat. But in the Christian faith, it's actually the way to victory. And I'll get to that in a minute too. But it's daily denying and dying to ourselves. So it's the opposite of what I want. I want this and I want that, I want this and I want that. But the Bible says to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love others You can't love others if you love yourself more. And we have this kind of idea that says we need to love ourselves first before we love others. I actually think I can love myself better by loving others. Because that is when you truly get closest to the heart of God, when we love others, when we love Him. We need to daily surrender ourselves. And now I'm getting to the point in the message where we talk about the why. Now, I don't know if the why is really the most important thing. Why do we need to surrender? You said all of this cool stuff about the what and the how and the when, but why? Why does the whole Bible point to one man? This one story in this book leads to this concept of surrendering our lives to Jesus. Why? Full surrender is the only path that leads to victory. I can remember when I was a youth pastor, I was just talking about it with a couple of people here beforehand. I was the youth pastor here at Journey for, I think, about 10 years before I started taking on some other roles and transitioning into other roles. And I can remember every summer I would take the youth paintballing. And the reason why I did that, and I never told them this, but the reason why I did that is because it took a whole year of frustration to get me to the point where I wanted to shoot them with paint. And I would specifically invite certain teenagers, right? Because there were certain teenagers I wanted to shoot more. And so I would divide the teams. Of course, I was the pastor, so I got to do what I wanted to do, right? So I would say, okay, I'm the captain of both teams. I'm going to choose you here, you here, you here. And the people that frustrated me the most, I put on the opposite team. And I didn't care if I captured the flag. I just wanted to shoot someone between the eyes. I wanted a great big paintball right here because of my year of frustration. Now, if you're watching and you are a youth of the past of Matt Palmer's, and you have any question of whether that was you or not, there's no way I'm going to tell you. But there was this one guy. I loved him so much. I loved him. There were times. And so I can remember my goal was to get behind this barricade. And I knew where he was. He thought he was kind of military. He was in the military, I think. And so he had an upper hand on me, but he didn't know that my only goal was to get him. I didn't care about the flag. So I was in this little hut with windows surrounding me, and I was down there, and I was scared to death. I was shivering. I was scared. I was like, I'm going to pop up here in about 5 seconds. I'm going to shoot this dude. And all of a sudden, I heard these feet coming, and fear came over me. I didn't know if it was a friendly or an enemy. But it didn't take me long to figure out it was this guy. And he put his paintball gun down, and he didn't even look. He just knew I was in there. He didn't even look. And he opened fire, and he had this special gun, of course. And it was like a rapid fire, double trigger, and she was like, and I must have gotten shot. I left that game looking like a Dalmatian. I had bruises all over me. I think I still have some. And the only thing I could yell was, surrender! I surrender, stop! And he couldn't hear me because of his double triggers. He unloaded the whole hopper on his youth pastor. And all I could think to do was put my gun up and surrender. And sometimes I know that seems like a really poor illustration because that was me admitting defeat. But you see, that's the way it is in the world. We're admitting defeat, and that's when pride comes in and we don't surrender. If I was prideful, I would have just gotten out of there and tried to shoot him myself. But I surrendered that day, and I was defeated. But in the Christian faith, it's not like that. It's the opposite. Surrendering in our Christian walk is the only way to victory. Surrendering is not defeat with Jesus. Surrendering is that we win. There are two gardens that I want to close with today. Two gardens. There was a garden in the Garden of Eden, and there was a Garden of Gethsemane. First garden, you all know the story of Adam and Eve and how they sinned, and sin entered the world, defeat entered the world, self entered the world, evil came to be. And in that garden, we surrendered to ourselves, our own selfish desires. They thought it was freedom. They were sold that it would be freedom, but it actually was bondage. And we are sold that all the time if we just surrender to who I am. If we surrender to self, the world, the spirit of the world will tell us that we are free. But it's actually the biggest lie the devil has been telling since the Garden of Eden. It is not surrender to self that sets you free. That's what brings you bondage. But in this other garden, thousands of years later, Jesus Christ, just before he is betrayed to go to the cross to take care of the sins of the world, he sits there while his disciples are over here supposed to be praying, but they're sleeping. He sits there and the Bible says in Luke that he wasn't just praying, he was actually sweating. His sweat was becoming like drops of blood. He was having a panic attack. He was stressed to the max, anxious because he knew what was coming. And this is what he said to his Father. He said, Father, if there's any possible way, any way at all, take this from me. If there's another way to save humanity from the effects of sin, please show me. I don't want to go through this. But then he set his anxiety aside and he said, but not my will be done, but yours. And that day, instead of choosing self, he chose his Father's will. And that day, he corrected the decision that was made in the Garden of Eden. And he surrendered and he paved the road to victory. And that's what God is calling us to do. He's calling us to decide between ourselves. He's calling us to decide between our own preferences, our own opinions. He's calling us to decide whose team are we on, and are we fully on the team? Nobody wants anybody playing for them on a hockey team who is only there in body, but their mind and their heart somewhere else. Who are you today? Are you fully surrendered? One step at a time. And in closing today, I just want to talk to you about this one man who was in China. His name is Pastor Chen, and we're going to show a short video after this. So I want you really to pay attention here, because this is an amazing story of surrender and praise. And by the way, as Pastor Gary comes back, I don't think that we have a sin issue in this world. You would look at this world and say that we have a sin issue. But I don't think we have a sin issue. I think we have a surrender issue. Because I believe now theologians may, I know this is a play on words, theologians may point to me and say that guy's a heretic, but sin is only the symptom of an unsurrendered heart. There's something much deeper than the act of sin. And it's an unsurrendered heart. Pastor Chen was in China. And during, I forget exactly when it was, but it was quite a long time ago. I don't think he's any longer with us, but Pastor Chen got thrown into a prison camp for preaching Jesus. It wasn't just because he wouldn't make people, do what he wanted them to do, or he was being belligerent. He was actually just peacefully preaching the cross of Christ. And with many other people and preachers and church members, he was thrown into a prison camp with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And people hated him. Other prisoners hated him, especially the guards hated him. They treated him for 12 years. They treated him like he had murdered their own child or something. And for 12 years, he put up with this. And he just longed. He longed to be in the presence of God, and he could never find time alone. He was always surrounded by other prisoners or guards beating him and abusing him. And then after 12 years, the guards decided to basically give him a death sentence. And they asked him, and everybody had this daily job, and they asked Pastor Chen, they didn't ask him, they brought him to this cesspool, the sewer pit of the prison. And it was just this great big pit of poop, a pit of poop. And the guard said, here's your job, Chen. You're going to walk around and you're going to stir the poop. You're going to stir human feces that served upwards of 60,000 prisoners. And this is going to be your job. And this was his job for the next 6 years, every day, from morning till night. And he recalls the first day and the stench. You can imagine the stench. You can imagine this pastor who was preaching Jesus and found he would have every reason to complain. The stench filled his nostrils, and I'm sure that he lost his dinner a few times. But he walked around and he walked around, and eventually, I don't know if it was the next day or it was very soon after his first day, he said that he actually looked at this as an opportunity, because for the first time in the last 12 years, he was able to be alone with God. Alone with God, and he was able to praise him. He started to sing hymns of praise. He sung in both English and Mandarin. And he said, the stench of the sewer, the stench of the cesspool began to smell like roses. It began to be a sweet aroma. So out of the trenches of human feces became an aroma of praise to the nostrils of God. And the beautiful thing, God says that your praises I inhabit, and I love the smell of your praises. And for 6 years, he was surrendering every moment of every day. And the most beautiful thing about this whole story is this: before he went into prison, his church that he was preaching at, that he started, was about 100 people. And when he was released at the end of those 6 years of walking around in the cesspool, he went back to his church, and his thoughts were, what do I do? Is there even going to be a church to go back to? He had no communication with the outside world. When he went back to the church, they met with him, and they said, Pastor Chen, I don't know what's been going on, but for over the past 6 years, we have grown from 100 to 5,000 people. Some may call that a coincidence. I call that a fully surrendered heart to a fully awesome God. All he wants is one step at a time. One step at a time to be fully surrendered to him. Can you do that with me today? He's asking you to fully surrender. I want you to watch Pastor Chen as his story is explained.
China's Cultural Revolution ushered in a brutal era to choke off the rapidly growing Christian population. The communist government sought to put all Christian ministers in prison. Kangaroo courts were hastily formed, and Pastor George Chen was sentenced to hard labor in a prison camp for the so-called crime of preaching the gospel. After languishing in prison for many years, he received an ominous assignment from his captors to work in the prison farm's cesspool. In those days, it was tantamount to a death sentence. And so it was here in the prison cesspool that he began to pray and worship, and would sing his song every day in English and in Mandarin Chinese. As he told me his touching story, he lifted up his heart and his voice and relived his treasured spiritual experiences there in his own garden of prayer.
I come to the garden alone, where the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ears, the Son of God is closer. 他和我同行，又和我谈心，并对我属于他。我们同在是亲近真甘美，没有比让人领会。None other has ever known such joy, such sweetness, while I worked in the cesspool.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of life. And as you speak,
100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets fall. If the stars were made to worship, so will I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I.
so God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. Oh, and as you speak,
100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I.
so will you gladly chose surrender so alive. I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them so alive, like you would again 100 billion times. What measure could amount to your desire? With the one who never leaves the one behind.
Thank you all for tuning in with us this morning. Also, big thank you for Matt and his amazing message on surrendering your burdens to God. Big shout out to our band and tech team for being so talented and just overall awesome. Quick reminder that there are still life groups happening, and we would love for you to join one. It's a great opportunity to be able to connect with people in the church community. If you are feeling inclined to give, you can visit journeyonline.ca, and there will be instructions to do so on there. I hope you have a great week. Everyone stays safe and healthy, and hope to see you next Sunday. Bye.